afternoon, everyone who is joining us today on an ICHRA Town Hall. I've got Michael Levin with me here today, one of the industry experts in the space. Him and I have been nerding for the past 20 minutes on all kind of cool things about healthcare costs and technology and super cool stuff, and how ICHRA is going to play us a part in that. Because I was telling him my life mission before I ride off into the sunset is to put my little grain of salt in how can I help lower healthcare costs in this country. How do I make healthcare more accessible to more people? Because in the end, we're trying to save money for our country and to us to live long and healthy lives. So welcome to everyone to join us. Thank you for being here. I think that you'll be able to post questions in a chat as we go along. At the end of and any question that you post on the chat, if we don't get to it on time, I promise you that we will answer every single one post the meeting. Because you have here a couple of insurance nerds that love this stuff, and I am passionate about ICHRA because I think ICHRA is it's going to play a huge part and how do we do healthcare in this country. So welcome, Michael. Welcome. I'm Tony Feijoo. I am the CEO and founder of New Health Partners. I am also behind the organization of the ACA Way. Michael is a huge partner of ours. We're with ICHRA from the very beginning of our company. We have our own enrolling platform. All of our colleagues in that world are great people. I know all those guys. Michael, if you want to give your little intro and we'll get started, because you'll do that better than I can.
That's very kind of you, Tony. Thank you. Yeah, I'm a self-described benefits geek, which plays into ICHRA. Hey, everybody, I'm Mike Levin, SVP of Health of ICHRA here at HealthSherpa, which means I have business line responsibility for ICHRA within HealthSherpa. Importantly, we are not an ICHRA administrator or TPA, as they're sometimes called. Instead, we're building the plumbing. We're building the carrier connectivity that all of the ICHRA administrators need. So taking a little different approach than what some of you may know from the HealthSherpa marketplace. But I am all in on ICHRA, have been since the rules were passed a number of years ago, and excited to talk all things ICHRA today.
Awesome. And I need to mention that we had another guest that was going to be in our panel, Wesley.
Yeah.
Wesley was on leave, and he agreed to be part of the panel, but Wesley had an emergency with his baby,
Yeah.
and he had to, they had to take care of that. So and he's awesome, right? So it's all of you or all of us who raise kids. I got plenty of stories of
Yeah.
of,
So
of meetings that I miss, not being able to be on time because one of my children was doing something. But anyway,
Well, we both have four kids, Tony, so
four.
we
Yes,
share that.
four.
We share
Yeah, yeah,
that.
we do. So let's jump right in.
Yeah.
For those of you that in 2 seconds, Michael, can you give us like a 2 minute description of what ICHRA is? Because there might be some folks here that jumped in because they want to learn more about ICHRA. What is ICHRA? And can you just give
Sure.
us the elevator pitch of what ICHRA is?
Yeah. So ICHRA first, what's the acronym? It sounds worse than it is. Individual Contribution Health Reimbursement Arrangement.
Yeah.
What is it really? It's a way for an employer to provide pre-tax dollars to their employees to go out and secure their own coverage. And what it does is it unlocks a world of choice for the employee. It unlocks cost control for the employer, And it's really not really, it's a whole new strategy in the world of employee benefits. And one that is, if you ask me, just past that inflection point. So ICHRA is a new way or a new model for employee benefits.
Cool. So, so it's I think that is going to do wonders in stabilizing the market,
Yeah.
stabilizing the ACA market, because now you're going to have this much broader pool of
Yes.
individuals. And Michael, and I know we've heard a zillion numbers. In your opinion, and nobody is going to publish this or say Michael Levin said this. Uh, in your opinion, what do you think that looks like in the next 5 years, right? Assuming that you and I were talking about it earlier about the regulations, and we'll talk a little bit about that, guys, because this is a group effort, right? That we all have to participate. What do you think the market looks like in the next 5 years?
So let's start with what it looks like right now.
Yeah,
And we've been pretty public about putting out numbers. We think it's roughly 1 million members, belly buttons today.
yeah,
Okay. And while that's small in the world of the ACA, it's certainly small in the world of employee benefits. We were talking earlier, 175 million individuals covered through group health plans. It's growing at a rapid clip. We saw roughly 3x growth last year, so 1/1/25 to 1/1/26. We're a pretty good proxy. We're up about 60% year to date. Florida's a hot market, more than doubled already a year to date. So, you start to compound that growth rate, and we see, 3 years is probably easier to see than 5 years out. But we see breaking the first 5 million over the next 3 years.
yeah. That's a fantastic number, and that's just continuing on this trend that we're in, right?
Yep.
And I'll sprinkle something onto that to what Michael just said. To those of you that might not know this, there is it's a miracle, but both parties agree on ICHRA. Both of our political parties, there is bipartisan support on ICHRA. Wow. They both sides agree on something. So there is a legislative push to throw financial resources to employers as tax credits
Yep.
to incentivize them to use ICHRA as an alternative. I think that Mississippi and Indiana, Michael, are the ones that have already laws in the books,
And Connecticut as well.
in Connecticut as well. And,
Yep.
and I think Mississippi is extremely generous, right? Is it like $400 per employee? Don't quote me, guys, but I think the number is up there. And that is a good thing, because I think there's another 11 states or something like that that
Yep.
are running debate over what to do to incentivize employers to do this.
Yes.
So, the point that I want to make across here is to all of you here, whether you're in the group space or whether you are in the ACA space or whether you're in the group benefit space, this is going to happen, guys. This is not an experiment, right?
No.
This is going to happen. It's a fantastic thing for us. It's going to have a magnificent downstream effect in healthcare in our country. So we need to all get educated and understand it so that we
Mhm.
can go out and offer it. Lupe, I know I saw your hand up. If you can, just put your question in the chat, and we'll get to it when we can. Um, I wanted to ask you something, Michael, as far as in the behavior of the market, right?
Mhm.
Do you see ICHRA being pitched as a last resort, as an alternative? I want to imbue these folks with enough
Yeah.
knowledge or enough interest to say, hey man, I want to do this thing. And how do I do that? And when I go see a group, do I present ICHRA first? Do I talk about group insurance first? Give, a,
Yeah.
give, us- give us your ideas on how to do that.
Oh, that's there's multiple layers to that onion. So I'll start first by talking about the small group market, which I have a personal passion for. 50% of groups under 50 are not offering employer-sponsored benefits today. 70% under 20
Can you
are
repeat that
not.
number again, please?
So 50% of groups under 20, under 50 are not offering employer-sponsored benefits, and it increases to 70% under 20, under 20 employees. So
That's
here,
millions of people.
millions of people. I
Millions
should
of
have had the
people.
number, but I think the market for, and someone will correct me on this, for employees and groups under 50 is somewhere around 30 million individuals employed there. So why aren't they offering coverage? Maybe they were, and they just got fed up with the increases and the complexity. And sometimes you have minimum participation requirements, and they just said, "We're out." Well, ICHRA is a an opportunity for those employers to do something rather than nothing. And there's a study that came out from the EBRI just this week that said 55% of those small groups are unaware that ICHRA is an option for them today. So there remains, despite our conversation before this began about the level of awareness increasing, there is this knowledge and awareness gap in the small market. I think there in the small market under 50, ICHRA is increasingly a lead, a solution through which you're leading. Now, when you go above that, this is go above 50. These are referred to as ALEs, applicable large employers. Typically, they have coverage, they have a group benefit broker, and I'm sure I'll get some hate on this, ICHRA is typically defensive in nature. It's a reaction, not a lead strategy. And we're starting to see some inklings that that could change this year, but that's been the reality that as we've been watching it.
Very cool. And I'll add something to that to our audience. Some of you might be familiar with it, and some of you are starting to dabble into it. And why, ICHRA came about as a regulation in 2017. Something called COVID came in and kind of like threw a giant wrench into the machine. And then in the last couple of years, you had all these great platforms emerge, great technology from all of our partners that are trying to uh, uh, help employers enroll into an ICHRA offering. Um, what we call the low hanging fruit now, right? Which is and it's not only it's not and I think I've heard Michael talk about this in other panels. It used to be the driving force of ICHRA, no longer, and which is it used to be that, or it still might be, right? That in the markets where the individual premiums are lower than traditional group, ICHRA has an opportunity, right? But that's not always the only driving force. I mean, you heard Michael
Yep.
talk about, the percentages of uninsured employees based on number of employees in a company, but the power of choice, right?
Yeah.
Uh, because at some point, and Amber, I'll get to your question, which I think is a very interesting question. Maybe Michael and I can take a stab at it. And we can be very conversational. I told Michael we're going to be conversational today. We're not going to be, like stiff like this, and we want to have a conversation with all you
Yeah.
guys. Um, at some point, it's not premium is not going to be the driving force of ICHRA.
Yeah.
It's going to be choice and technology, right? I work for Michael, and Michael says to me, "We're doing United Healthcare next year." And my United Healthcare friends, and there's any of you on the Zoom, I love you. You're my buddies. Um, but and I don't want United Healthcare, man. I don't want that, right? So Michael's gonna come and say, "Well, look, here's this." new thing that we're doing, and you pick. You pick whatever you want. You pick. Look at the networks. Look at the medications. You pick what you want.
Yes.
And if you leave me as an employee next year, good luck to you. You take that with you. I mean, how cool is that, right? Well, I just nerded out completely. You know?
It's super cool, and there's, to nerd out, there's data to support that perspective. So I don't know, about 18 months ago, Deft Research came out with a report, and they surveyed employees who had group health plans, and 65% of those employees said they wouldn't have selected the plan in which they were enrolled, but it was either the only choice or the best perceived choice. 65%.
A huge number.
Huge number. And
Yeah.
the cost of healthcare last year was about $24,000 for a family. This year, I think KFF is saying closer to 30. If you think about that disconnect, 65% wouldn't have selected that $30,000 investment they're making, is stunning. And yes, while like many industries, that cost differential was an early driver. Consumerization is ultimately going to be the driver of ICHRA, in my opinion.
That's correct. And let me just jump really quick at Amber's question. Amber saying in Ohio, not many providers accept ACA plans because the reimbursements are so low. Do you see this changing? And yes, we do, right? You want to take a crack at that, Michael?
Yeah, so yes, we do. And look, there's folks say, look, the plans aren't enough to move the market, the networks aren't there. These are all indicative of an early stage market. We're a million members. But as more members come in, and they are coming in, carriers will respond. And you can see that. For example, Centene through Ambetter Health is creating plans focused on ICHRA, and they have different reimbursements for providers to broaden those networks to make those plans interesting to folks coming from the group space. So yes, we believe that networks will expand. Reimbursements will be part of that, but the market will respond to the demand.
Yeah, and to Michael's point, Amber, I've been doing this for 20 something years, and I remember the very first year of the ACA, and there were doctors that were in network telling consumers that they didn't accept the plans. And so I think that to Michael's point, as we start growing the membership, you're going to see a much wider acceptance and also a negotiation on the reimbursement rates.
Yeah.
Because him and I were nerding about healthcare costs before the conversation started today, and we're not going to get into that today. But I want to have a town hall to talk about healthcare costs in this country, but not today. Not today, because it's a big thing.
But there is, I think one of the common misperceptions, Tony, is that because ICHRA can reduce an employer's cost, and I know that's a question out there, that it must equal lesser coverage. But those reimbursement rates matter here. If providers are reimbursed at 20 to 30% below those commercial rates, that allows employers to provide the same level of coverage through these plans.
Yeah.
So this misconception of lower rates equals lower quality does not hold.
That is correct. That is correct. And thank you for bringing that up because that's an interesting point. And before I get to the next question, I want to jump on Carolyn because actually that was going to be one of the things that we talk about later. Carolyn is saying we're working on educating our group insurance brokers on ICHRA.
Yeah.
One question comes up repeatedly. How do we reassure brokers that they remain valuable after a transition to ICHRA,
Yeah.
commissions, renewals, etc. Right?
Well,
We get that question all the time. So
yeah, and I think the underlying question there is around whether agents and brokers can keep AOR and BOR in ICHRA. This is another misconception. They can. There are a number of platforms that allow the agent and broker to keep AOR and BOR. And agents and brokers are an important cog in this whole machine. And this is one of the points that Wesley would have, I think, spoken really well to. If an agent broker helps an individual find the right plan based on their situation in life, any kind of diseases they may have, ultimately putting someone in the right plan reduces healthcare costs for everyone. It's when someone's in the wrong plan and shows up with certain diseases and such that we start to see costs start to come out of control.
So, Caroline, to what Michael was saying, I will add that this is still, and I'm going to just put that into quotation marks, a business of relationships. So the broker owns that relationship. You have the friendship with that business owner. You own that, right? That is you, and that is the strongest part of this equation, right? I think that I appreciate that you're doing your ICHRA education on your brokers. Michael and his team, they're a great resource for that. HealthSherpa does trainings continuously on ICHRA. All of the platforms that are in the market, including the one that we have, do the same thing. Because a year and a half ago, I was having a meeting with one of the established carriers in the industry that are doing ICHRA, and they were asking me, "Hey, how do we do this?" I'm like, it's easy. It's a ground game. We have to go out there and knock on doors and educate, because we don't have the luxury that the Affordable Care Act had, which was this is a mandate, or it's mandated, and every press in the world covered it, and it starts today. ICHRA doesn't have that. ICHRA is, even though it's a regulation, it doesn't have that kind of wave support. So it's up to us, right? It's up to us. But the biggest pains, are healthcare cost, choice. Everybody's mad about that. Our country is mad about healthcare. And I think that ICHRA offers a solution to those individuals. But the agent doesn't lose the AOR or the BOR. It's a misconception
Yes.
about ICHRA, and I think it was, maybe at the beginning there was a little bit of truth to that, but platforms were trying to figure this out,
Yeah.
not because they want to take away your business. It's because of all the regulations behind ICHRA and the government, and how does the NPN gets associated with a policy, and who can call the government or the carrier. We're working on that as an industry, and I want to encourage all of you to become members of a advocacy organization, whether it's NABID or HAFA or any of the, and they're all going to be part of the ACA Way. Become a member and have your voice be heard in Washington, D.C. I was telling Michael, I'm going to be there in 2 weeks, knocking on doors for 3 days, talking to Congress people and to senators about ICHRA. Um,
Tony, I would also argue that the role of a broker agent is elevated with ICHRA. When in a group plan, the first stop is HR. When an employee has an issue or trying to figure out what plan, HR is the first stop. But HR in ICHRA doesn't have that same station. So it's the agent broker who's going to help the individual member. And that's a critical piece because depending on the platform, anywhere from 30 to 70% of individuals are looking for a person to help them through their journey.
that's a super cool point.
Yeah.
That is a super, super cool point that Michael brings, which is very interesting, in the displacement of that, right? Because with ICHRA, it's not that HR doesn't have to deal with it anymore, but it's now a new person in the mix that is now dealing with it. Because in the old times, HR was dealing with group all the time, and the broker or the agency came in to the rescue when there was something bigger that they couldn't solve. Today, that's changed, which makes the agent more valuable. That's a super cool point, and I'm going to write that down because I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that in my promotions of ICHRA.
I
Michael,
mean,
that's very accurate.
to put a point on it, look, if you've got, not to pick on them because, but if you've got United Healthcare as your plan, HR becomes pretty well versed in all of it, the different elements of that one plan. But if you've got 100 people in 100 different plans across 10 different carriers, they just can't be in that role. So the agent broker has a really meaningful role. So yeah.
Yeah. Let me I want to jump on some other very cool questions that I'm seeing here. It says, Brad Prodas is saying choice doesn't motivate an employer. I found price does. So why would an employer use ICHRA?
So.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. So, why do we have employee benefits? It's to attract and retain personnel, right? And, I'm a numbers guy. I think you know that, Tony. But if you look at employee satisfaction with benefits over the last 15 years, it hasn't moved. It's been at the same level despite point solutions and increasing costs. And employers are kind of at their wits' end as to how to solve for this because it's untenable. The cost increases, the lack of satisfaction, the number of relationships they're managing. So ICHRA is a solution for that. For that, it gets the employer out of that role. Yes, it does provide them with cost control, which kind of hits the cost button. But when individuals have dominion over their care, when they have choice, they're happier. They're happier and they're more engaged in their own healthcare. And ultimately, that gets to a point that you and I share, and that is, an engaged individual is more likely to be thoughtful about how they use their healthcare.
yes, and it's also something very interesting to Michael's point, guys, is that and I think we might have mentioned it initially that yes, price is a driving factor now, and it's the taking the guesswork out of it, right? So you're a company owner, and you're going to say, I have a defined contribution towards healthcare, and I am not worried about price increases next year like I used to be, right? So it's predictable, So and that and I guess that means that has different meanings to different size companies.
Mhm.
Because I've been doing this for a long time, and when ICHRA started, I said, awesome, great solution for the small employer. In 1,000 years would I've ever imagined that large groups were going to be in ICHRA. And lo and behold, man, there are some very large groups on ICHRA now, right?
Yep.
And some of them did not make the decision based on price. They made the decision based on choice.
Yep.
They don't want to deal with it anymore. I'm talking about 2,000 people in a group, 5,000 people in a group. Those are out there, guys. They've been written. These are real numbers. And when you look at charts of accelerated growth, the adoption of the large employer has grown.
Yep.
So yes, it's a big point, and but it's not the only one. Um,
In this EBRI report that I referenced before,
yeah,
there's a stunning stat here. And this was a survey they did across employers of different sizes, including megas of 10,000 or more. 33% of the employers they surveyed with 10,000 or more employees were very likely to adopt an ICHRA over the next 1 to 2 years. So to your point, it's not just a small market product
correct.
or solution.
Listen, man, we've got some super cool people in this audience. I've got this great question that I have to ask
Yeah.
from Amy D. This is a super cool question, Amy. Love it. The cost risk is transferred to the client. The client will have to deal with the price increases. That's a super interesting question. And I'll push back a little bit on it, right? Because the the cost of the premium of the insurance and the contribution are intertwined, right? When you talk about risk in our business, and Michael and I were nerding out about that earlier today, is the actual cost of healthcare. So but it's a great, I love where your head is at, right? I love where your head is at, right? Because, you know, when you as a consumer, and I think this is a cool implication of your question, and Michael chime in, is that you as a consumer, you are in charge of your healthcare, right? Now it's you, right? So my employer says, Tony, I am going to contribute $800 a month towards your health insurance. Good luck, go for it. I own that process, you
Yeah.
know. I own that process. So, Michael, do you want to add anything to what Amy was asking?
Yeah, I mean, I agree in general. And to your point, I think an active consumer is results from that. But I would argue that the same thing's happening in the group space.
Yeah,
So, if you're a group and you're seeing looking at a 20% increase or a 30% increase, what do? You increase your deductibles, you decrease your coverage, you're transferring risk to your employees. And you're doing so without them having a choice other than completely opting out.
yeah.
So I think that's just kind of the reality that happens in either environment.
Yeah. I'm gonna jump into some of the other questions that I wanted to ask you too, Michael, and I'm gonna get back to the questions, guys. There's some very, very good questions here on the panel that I'm loving, and thank you guys for the questions, and I love this stuff. Is I want to give some of the folks that are here. Some of them are agency owners that have a lot of agents underneath them, and I wanted to ask you some practical questions, Michael. Right, so.
Yep.
In your opinion, right? I'm Joe Agent. I'm here today for the very first time, or Mary Agent. Let me
Yep.
be politically correct, Joe and Mary Agent. And we're here, and I want to go. And tomorrow, I want to start. I want to start
Okay.
doing this, right? Obviously, you have to be licensed with the carriers. You have to be contracted. You got to have the licenses. We're assuming everybody understands that. There's many platforms out in the market. We're more than willing to share which ones they are. Michael works with all of them. We can help you with all that. But if you're an agent and I want to do this, what do I do tomorrow? Is there an industry I should go after? Is there, what's the pitch? What practical advice can we give? And look, I come from a time where
Yeah.
you knocked on doors, right? That's how I started in this industry, knocking on doors many, many years ago. So, any advice, any
Yeah.
practical advice that we can give them on, geography, industry, pitch, how to approach it?
I'm going to answer that question through the lens of an individual ACA agent. And the first piece is don't swing for the fences. I've talked with some like I'm going to start with groups over 100. And quite frankly, you've got to displace a group benefit broker. It's complex. There's other products. That's not your starting place. On the other hand, let's go back to the top of the conversation. There are these virgin or uncovered groups. So if I were an agent, I would look at my book of business and I would look at titles and say, do I have any general managers or owners or presidents? Because if they're on your roles as individual clients, they're likely not providing any kind of group coverage. So start there, reach out to them and say, have you heard about this thing called ICHRA? And focus on those smaller groups and learn. The other piece is, yeah, you need a platform. ICHRA is a group benefits plan. There's compliance that needs to be done there. And there's a lot of options to choose from depending on what your needs are as an individual. But I'd look first at my book.
Yeah, correct. So, 100%, right? And there's some stats somewhere. I forgot to read it. I forgot the number. The large amount of virgin groups that are coming into ICRA.
Yep.
I think I might have read this last year, like 82% or
Yes.
some number like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was an HRA council number.
yeah,
80% of the groups, or 83, somewhere in there,
yeah, yeah,
of
yeah.
the groups that moved to ICHRA in 25 were uncovered. I mean, that's a tremendous stat. The council's new data report will be coming out in the next 2 weeks. I certainly won't spoil the numbers there, but small group continues to be a driver for ICHRA.
Yeah, yeah. There's another cool question here that I wanted to look at it, Michael, from RJ Ruggies.
Mhm.
With the expirations of the APTCs, it's created the conditions where ICHRA is more attractive for a large number of markets. Do you think states will lean into this and follow Ohio's example, or will we see states with their own exchange expand their shop programs to directly compete against ICHRA? Um, I have my opinion on that, but what do you guys say about that?
Yeah, there's I think different threads there. So no, I don't think any states are going to expand SHOP. SHOP is really a failed model. So SHOP is a small group, ACA small group solution where employers can go and offer their employees choice, but it's choice against small group plans, and it across any measure, it hasn't been successful. Now, what is interesting is we're starting to see some states stand up their own ICHRA exchanges. So we see this in Georgia now. Connecticut has one, and others will be coming. There's a question as to whether those are complementary or competitive with the others. I have my own thoughts on that. But I suspect that we will see more of those kind of state-based ICHRA exchanges.
So I'm gonna take take a little bit of a left turn here and ask you a technology question, Michael. I moderated a panel on Monday regarding ICHRA in Orlando, and it wasn't part of the conversation, but I said, you know what, let's get things interesting here, um, and because look, we can't get away from it, right? And to me, my passion is education, right? And how that positively affects everything. Where do you see AI coming in and involved in all of this? How do you see AI helping, hindering? What are your thoughts on that? Because we can't get away from it. We can't
Yeah.
get.
Nor should we try to.
Yeah.
One area, and here's a group benefits talking point, anti-ICHRA talking point. You and I, Tony, are not able to navigate through the 30 or 100 plan choices. Well, first of all, I differ on that fundamentally. But here's an opportunity for AI to step in and to help guide an individual through their decision process based on their station in life. Who are their doctors? Who are the medications? Okay, that's pretty basic stuff. But what else is happening on their life? What kind of coverage do their spouses have? All of these things have an impact on ultimately what the right choice is. So there is an opportunity for AI, not only in ICHRA plan choice, but you used the term earlier on, defined contribution, and broadening out, because I look at a health plan as a financial instrument. It's one of many that we all have. We have, life insurance and disability, and there's other coverages and such. All of these should be working in concert together. And I actually am a huge advocate of a lot of folks buying down in insurance, getting lesser coverage because folks are often overcovered, and using that additional money for other things that they may need. And AI is a great solution to help navigate the complexities of language and product offerings. So I think that's one that stands out so very clearly to me, Tony.
Yeah, yeah, man. I'm drinking all the Kool-Aid. Yeah, I am. Because I think that we're living. This is gonna sound dramatic, guys. So everybody chill out. We're living in the most consequential times in human history. This is the most dramatic, I think compared to atomic energy, this is the most dramatic shift in technology that the world's ever seen. And the next 3 years are going to be incredibly impactful. And that is why it's so important that all of you, right, are in front of your clients and have that human connection to your client because AI is going to multiply you in many ways, but it's also going to take away things that you used to do and do them better than you, right? And that's not personal. That's happening in every single profession in the world. But more to come on that. There's a couple of really cool questions here. Which is I'll get to Matt's first. And Matt, I think you answered your own question in your question, but I'm going to read it. As the ICHRA market matures, where do you see the biggest opportunity for administrators to differentiate technology, plan selection, contribution strategy, employee experience, integrations, or something else? I think you said all of it there. I don't know, Michael. I don't know, if you have anything there on Matt's question, because yes, those are all accurate, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be something else. You know,
Well, I think there are something else. I mean, first of all, there's different market focus. What a 20-person or a 5-person company needs is very different than a 2,000-person company. So there's
there you
this
go.
natural segmentation based on company size. Small, you want, quite frankly, cheap because you don't want to eat into the contribution dollars. You want easy onboarding. You just want it to be kind of set it and forget it. Whereas up market, you need something different. But what we're also seeing is some unique go-to-market strategies. So I'll use an example of a company based there in Miami, Covered Health. So CVRD Health is focused on employers subject to, oh my goodness, I have a brain freeze. Uh, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just completely spacing out. It's government subcontractors subject to prevailing wage. Sorry, thank
Okay,
you.
there you go. Got it.
There. So under the prevailing wage requirements, those employers have to put aside a certain amount of dollars per hour for benefits. Well, that's defined contribution. And Alexa, who's the CEO, has built this purpose-built ICHRA platform to meet the needs of those employers. It talks their language. It does all the compliance stuff. So that's a very unique go-to-market. They've identified a market where ICHRA fits, and they've built technology and support around that. So it's more than just these things. I think there's also an opportunity to differentiate on the go-to-market motion. Not to mention, who is AOR and BOR is in and of itself a differentiating factor across these platforms.
Yeah. And then Matt had another question, and I think it's a super cool question too. Do you believe administrators are currently investing in the right areas, or are there capabilities the industry is overlooking? Um, um,
Well, look, I'm gonna share something that's somewhat self-serving. I think, and it was noted earlier in integrations, particularly carrier integrations. We're democratizing them here at HealthSherpa. So all 60 ICHRA admins need all the same connections to carriers. Why build it when we're delivering it? And by the way, we're delivering it at no cost. So, it's our belief that those aren't typically VC dollars well spent. I would like to see more innovation happening on the employee journey, on helping them make those right choices. And we are seeing it, but it's still early days, and so much can be done there. So much that we think about and can envision, but there are some great innovators in this space who are going to do some stuff that just blows us away.
so and what I'll add to that is Matt is that you'll see this industry evolving and competing by additional services, right? And you're already seeing it, right? You have, you know, these platforms, because of the tech, might be offering aggregate services to the employee, and it's all geared at wellness. Like, here's I'll help you make your doctor appointment. If you're looking for price transparency on
Yeah.
the price of procedures, I'm going to give you that information. So that's one of the hidden gifts that are going to come with ICHRA,
Mhm.
because we fly blind in our country when it comes to the cost of healthcare. And I think that that's a super cool point, excuse me, that you bring. And you will see that as added value.
Yeah.
You'll see the ICHRA platforms doing it, and you'll see the carriers doing it, because they want to compete for that member. But thank you for the question. Um, Kyle Cantrell is asking, do subsidies still apply to ICHRA the same way they apply to ACA plans? And the answer is no.
No
So,
double dipping.
yeah, there's no double dipping yet. We don't know yet.
You're an optimist, my friend.
Yeah, not
But
today. Not today. Yeah,
I will say this. So in the small market under 50, there's this opportunity. This is a strategy to implement what is called an unaffordable ICHRA. Compounds two negative words or two. It sounds bad, but it's actually really good. And when an employer in that market puts in place an unaffordable ICHRA, each member, each employee can choose between the employer contribution or opting out and going to the marketplace and availing them of a subsidy. So the platforms that cater to that market, here again, difference from the up market, is they'll do the math.
yeah,
And so while no subsidies don't apply to an ICHRA enrollment, they are part of this whole solution, particularly for the small market.
so I think James, that might answer, James Weinstein, that might answer some of your question, because James say, hey, cool. Now all my employees are going to join ICHRA, and I'm going to spend a whole lot more money on healthcare. So the typical group is insuring approximately 46% of the employees, and now now the employer is going to have to do 80%. I think that,
Isn't that a great thing?
yes, it is. It is a
I
great
mean,
thing.
I understand the economics,
Yeah,
but when we're talking about increasing coverage at the employer, that's good for the ACA, brings unsubsidized folks into the market.
yeah,
It's great for the employer from a retention perspective.
yeah.
And I don't want to be dismissive of the cost, but I would say that it's working.
Yeah, yeah, correct. That is correct. Yeah, Michelle, thank you for your statement. When the acre is not affordable for the dependents and the family can still get an APTC. I think there's some things that we are trying to work as an industry on the regulation side that we're trying to address. That's why I want to be in Washington D.C. for 3 days, just pounding ICRA and having us do things differently, so we can eliminate the friction of enrolling. There's no friction in utilization, right? This is at the time of enrollment. We want to get rid of all the friction. That eliminates that.
I think Michelle's speaking to the family glitch, which exists in
Yes.
ICHRA. And if the employee is offered an ICHRA which extends to the dependents, and if it's affordable, the dependents cannot opt out and go get an APT
Correct.
tax credit.
Correct.
So that's one of the top adjustments that we're looking for. And you mentioned it earlier on. We have got a administration that is very pro ICRA and is listening. So I would hope that that would be addressed.
Yeah, yeah. There was a couple of questions earlier too that I wanted to jump in. And look, it's the the regulations of the marketplace ACA. It's ICRA is using ACA products, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And there's still a lot of questions regarding immigration status, and all these things that are affecting the individual enrollment. It affects everything, including ICRA. But in order to work in our country, you have to have a legal status to work.
Mhm.
in our country, and if you have that, then you qualify for a an ICHRA plan. But I think that Michael, you want to add something to that?
No, I mean, we do think that our thesis here is that that does put pressure on employers to do something rather than nothing. When there is, increasing limits on APTCs for the broader environment.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, where can we get the group involved and being a unified voice for change on regulation? What do you think are the things that should be top of mind of everyone here? Because we were talking about this earlier, and you know, when a year and a half ago, when CMS started issuing all the changes or the possible changes and the elimination of the APTCs and you know and we as agents and agencies in the industry, we went to Congress and we went to the Senate and we were speaking to these folks, but we were a voice of one, right? We need to coalesce into a voice of thousands, right? And you have to speak to your local representatives. They listen, by the way. You know, you'd be surprised how much they listen. So Michael, what are in your opinion, you know, what should be the top concerns on the regulation side that we can get, you know, educate the folks on the call so they get involved with their legislators. What should we
Yeah.
be talking to our legislators?
Fixing the ICHRA family glitch, I would put up top up there. You know, I come from an infrastructure perspective, so it's a lot of the nitty-gritty. So another one is that the benchmark plan for ICHRA, that on which affordability is based, is the lowest cost silver on exchange plan, and yet 83% of ICHRA is off exchange, and we believe that number will increase. So there's this disconnect here. So shifting the benchmark plan to be the off exchange equivalent, that's on our wish list. There's also, a disconnect on just pure timing, where um, uh, group plans are well underway for renewals earlier in the season than OE, and yet we don't get rates from the various carriers until later in the season. So to the extent that that can be accelerated, preferably as early as mid-September, which is, by the way, a huge lift for the industry. I don't want to minimize it. But if rates could be available by mid-September, I think that would increase conversion of groups heading into the season. So again, maybe a little bit different than some others, but we come at it from an infrastructure perspective.
That's a really cool point because you know we 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 always even before ICRA
Mhm.
we always pushing CMS and the carriers to publish rates earlier,
Yeah.
right? You know, because you don't have time. You know you have only a finite amount of time to get people enrolled. But you know what I want to dig in more into that. You know, because I know rates are filed. I think on the ACA, I think rates are filed by June, if I'm not mistaken, around there. Is that
So
the final review is in June, right?
Well, so this is again is a great Wesley question.
Yeah.
I believe initial rate filings start as early as April, May. Depends
Right,
on the state.
right.
There's some periods, but I believe they don't go final, which there's, I'm sure, some technical term until the first week in September.
Okay.
Now, last year was unusual because there were all these changes and carriers were given leave to refile, so it was even later. But even if they're quote unquote finalized at the first week of September, there's a lot of work to be done to then put those into systems and distribute them. I still personally believe there's an opportunity to accelerate from where we are today to something more nominal for ICHRA.
And 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 I want to add something to that. It's all in the process, which
Mhm.
is, you know, and we're obviously we're here talking about ICRA. We want to educate everyone on ICRA. We want ICRA to be successful. ICHRA is not going to be right for everyone, right? This is not, you know,
Today.
yes, today. But I've been reading, some of Michelle's comments, right? Obviously, Michelle has experience already in the industry. It's not right for everyone. So if you are an ACA agent that has never done group before, right, and you want to do group, now you're hopefully we got you fired up, and you're like, oh yeah, I want to do this. And you're already contracted. You have to look at your non-residents across the country.
Mhm.
You'll be able to start understanding this one day at a time, one deal at a time. The if I'm you, right, I'm finding out in my city who are the group agencies, right? Who are the group agencies that know nothing of the ACA, and
Mhm.
as a matter of fact, who probably had a little bit of hatred for the ACA, and now you're the expert, right? You're gonna go to Joe and Joe Group Insurance Company and say, "Hey, man, I'm an ACA expert. I've
Yeah.
got 1,000 members in my personal book. I know the ACA more than you know the ACA, and here's this thing called ICHRA. How do we work together?" Tomorrow, I will make that your homework, because the majority of the groups that are being written now are coming in through those channels, right? It's group guys that are out there that are knocking on doors. It's TPAs that are knocking on doors, and now we're saying, hey, this ICHRA thing might work. Do you agree, Michael, with that? Do you think that's a good strategy? I saw you kind of like go like this, and I'm like, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think so, not 100%. I mean, again, I said it earlier, if I were, trying to write my first groups, I'd look internally first. I think the challenge there, and by the way, that's a strategy. To go to the group benefit brokers and be an extension of their team, a knowledgeable extension. But often you have to convince them first that ICHRA is a thing. So, you've got first to educate them that ICHRA is a thing, and then to say, okay, now we can help you. Whereas I'd rather go spend my time, you said it, knocking on doors, looking at some of those virgin groups that employ so many, and writing the business.
Yeah, I mean that's how I started. That's how I started.
I know you did.
Knocking on doors, right, and getting to meet employers and people face to face, which is still valid, right? Um, let's see. Matt has a cool question here. How should we be interpreting the recent stay in the Columbus 2 case? Do you see it materially affecting the 2027 ICHRA selling season, particular carrier plan design, administrator readiness, or the confidence employers and advisors have in the individual market?
Look, we have a policy team that would be able to speak really well to that. It's not me.
Yeah,
Having said that, we're not seeing anything in the regs or in the reactions to it that is going to materially affect ICHRA this season.
I agree.
That's definitely a Mike perspective.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Same thing here, Matt. But we
okay.
will, like I said, all these questions we're going to take them in, and we can get the policy wonks on it. I've got, both Michael and I have plenty of people in our teams, or even from the carriers that
Yeah.
would love to answer that question more in detail. I think that, as I said originally, this administration. As a matter of fact, the second in command in CMS, Peter Nelson, a friend of mine, friend of Michael's, and he's going to be. I don't know if am I allowed to officially say he's going to be in the ACA way, because they've been very cryptic of what we can and cannot say, and I'll deny it forever that I said something. Um, Peter was part of the people that created ICRA,
Yeah.
right? It's his baby.
Yeah.
It's his baby, right? And so they're legislatively they're pushing for all these cool changes on expansion of networks, because they're thinking of the consumer. And look, we don't have a lot of time left. I know that we committed to a little bit more time, but I don't want to eat up everybody's afternoon because I'll do this forever. I'll talk about insurance till,
You
forever.
and me both.
Yes, yes, because but the conference that's happening in September in Miami, the ACA Way, and I think Brandon was asking a question earlier, as how can I make the best of it? Brandon, get there early and talk to everybody. Spend those 2 days. These are fantastic networking opportunities. I do this all the time. I've been doing it. I travel 50, 60 times a year, and I love meeting people, and I love getting folks to meet because this is a relationship business. This still matters, right? And it's a small. You think it's a huge industry. We're a small industry that is really offering services to a millions of people. My team just put up a QR code on the screen to get a discount. We and I'll do a little bit of self-serving here, Michael. On the ACA way, right? Why we created that, and that's a project that it's not to promote none of our companies. It is an industry event, and it had been a baby of ours for like 6 years until we got CMS on board to be part of it. So I wanted them to be a part of it because South Florida happens to be the largest ACA market in the country. Um, but the goal was to have a meaningful, relevant conference that is delivering cutting edge information, maybe controversial discussions, because it's not about drinking the Kool-Aid, it's about throwing things at each other, right? And we wanted to make it affordable, right? I mean, when you go to, and I have nothing against my sister colleague companies that have these great conventions. I go to all of them, right? But not everybody can afford to do some of these conventions. So I said, you know what? We got to do something that's affordable to the agent every day who this industry depends on, right? I'm an agent. I became an agent many, many years ago. If my perfect day would be a day speaking to consumers, believe that or not, right? I'll be, and I loved it, and I still do. But scan the QR code, guys. Get a discount. Be there, and again, get the most you can out of the conference by talking to everybody. There's going to be some very exciting panels. Some
Yep.
great people that are going to be there. That you can meet face to face. And take back with you as many resources as you can from the convention. Um, Michael, anything that you want to wrap this up with today? And uh,
No, I mean, going back to ACA Way, we will be there. I think there's 3 or 4 ICHRA panels. There's going to be a
yeah,
number of ICHRA administrators there. It's going to be, quite a sub theme throughout. So I'm excited to be back in Miami participating. Look, I mean, we've spent the last couple of years talking about how the ACA is shrinking. Whether it's 60% year-to-date growth or tripling year over year, where else are you going to find that kind of growing market?
yeah,
And that's a reflection of traction.
yeah,
It's not an
yeah.
idea, it's happening.
Yeah.
So,
And and
yeah.
and and remember, folks, I mean, as when we step back from a conversation, not knowing that we're consumers ourselves, right? We
Yeah.
all worry about our health care, and we worry about our family's health, and we want our families to be, covered. And if there's one piece of advice that I would give all of you who are either starting or want to get into this more in depth, treat it personal, right? Treat it personal, right? You are doing something for someone like if you were doing it for you. That was always what helped me be successful in my life. Took me a long time to learn that because in my 20s I knew everything, and then I found out that I knew nothing. But keep it personal. Keep it personal, and because you are also part of the system. And anyway, I want to thank the team that put this together. Michael, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you for HealthSherpa for being a great partner. You guys have always been great partners of ours. I love you guys. I've been there since the very beginning, since George shift his real estate idea into I want to get into this industry. Um, Somebody just wrote amaze, amaze, amaze on the an anonymous wrote amaze, amaze, amaze. Those are for you that are science fiction geeks. That's from the movie Hail Mary. Uh, I don't know if you can see it, but look, I have a little rock guy in my desk. I have one
I
here.
just we just watched that 2 nights ago, so now
Look,
I'm in. I'm in.
look at this
Uh,
right here. I have my little Rocky on my desk.
I
So
love it.
anyway, guys, thank you all for being here. If we didn't get to any of your questions, we'll make sure that we send you an email with an answer. Please come to the ACA Way if you can. If not, we're going to continue going around the country. As a matter of fact, we're doing a tour now. I think we were in Houston today.
Yeah.
I think tomorrow we're in Tampa. We're doing a tour, so we will make sure that you know when and where we will be to meet with you. If you want to talk some more, if you're not able to come to the conference, we'll come to you. But even though I think that, yeah, Michelle, the book was awesome. I'm reading it for the third time. I loved it. I love the book. And oh, she's asking for the QR code back on the screen.
It is.
Yeah, so I hope to see you all in the ACA Way. We made it uh, affordable for everyone to be here. You'll get to enjoy Miami in September. The beach waters are still somewhat warm in September. And we're in downtown Miami at the Hilton this year. 2-day conference. You can stay at the hotel and network, 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 network. And Joe, yes, the recording of the session will be shared. We have a YouTube channel, I think, where all of our town halls are being featured. And again, please engage with us, ask us questions, and if you want to have a post town hall nerding session, I'm there. But go out there and make it happen, guys. Let's be part of the movement that helps give access to more people healthcare in our country, and subsequently lower healthcare costs. And to the team that put this together, we need to have and I would love Wesley on that one, Michael. Wesley gets back, hope his
Yeah.
baby's fine, to talk about what are we going to do as an industry to help lower healthcare costs in our country. Anyway, guys, have an awesome afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. God bless you all. And I hope to
Thank
see
you,
you
everybody.
at the ACA Way. Michael, thank you for being with us today. Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me, Tony.
You're
We'll
very
see you all in
welcome.
September.
Yes, sir. I'll be there. Thank
All
you,
right.
guys. Have a great afternoon, guys. Amaze, amaze, amaze.